Hello, everybody. Today, we're here to talk about VR as a gift, and believe me, it'll become clearer as we meander along through this strange garden. We're also going to be covering a rather recent experiment that we've created, and it's highly sped up. It's not that crazy, I promise. That may lend itself to being a gift. It's a VR experience driven only by biodata to create a meditative biofeedback experience, and that's why we have all this crazy stuff here, and Mike, and we'll get to that in the second half of the presentation. Things we have to get through. Hey man, if you're going to talk about us, like on Twitter or Instagram or something, use the hashtag. Marketing. All right, so first, a little background. We work at the Mill. We are a series of studios in London, New York, Chicago, and LA. We've spent the last 25 years seeking new ways to move people through moving image. This is a very short selection of our work, but it's a place built on pushing creative boundaries. We're a multidisciplinary group of technologists and artists and directors and writers and animators and compositors and CG artists and coders. But we pride ourselves really on our visual language and our spirit of innovation, and constantly trying to push the edge of what is possible in visual narrative. At the heart of it is the language of film, and of course the moving image. As you can see, we've made a lot of it. But we believe that the moving image is changing in a big way. If it wasn't, you all wouldn't be here today. So enough of us. More about me. This is me. This is me at 8 years old. Basically, my job, I'm the executive creative director at the Mill, New York, and I basically think things up and lead teams in making them. I also run a global initiative for the Mill called Mill Lab. Basically, our job is to investigate new possibilities in filmmaking through tool creation and experimental projects. Mostly we do this. Thinking really deeply about the convergence of art and technology, rapid prototyping of techniques and concepts, hardware and software for film, interactive, and immersive experiences. Along the way, we've exploded and painted and soldered and coded all kinds of weird and cool things in the name of experimentation. There's VR and applications and installations and immersive rides, and well, you're going to see some of this in just a moment. That is Strata. I think there's a car in here somewhere too, or did I miss it already? But anyway, we get to play with all kinds of toys, and we just try to make art with it. And also, of course, the end goal of it is to help try and prototype the future of film. So enough about us. Let's get back to it. VR is a gift. Look at how cute that guy is. It's a dude, right? Sure it is. Let's get specific first. This is about VR works commissioned by a brand for commercial purposes. Note, I don't say ad. That's something that I want to be able to separate from right now. I want to be specific about what kind of work I'm talking about. I am not talking about this. In fact, this is, again, more work from the Mill. 25 years of making killer advertising. But this nature of advertising, this is ancillary content that is paired with other content. They precede, they intersect, or they embed. These moments can be beautiful, persuasive, they can even be captivating, but they are short and weaponized pieces of content. The first reaction, of course, when new things come along is to post-rationalize what you know into something new. And short weaponized pieces of content maybe aren't where the base of our thinking should be. It's kind of like trying to make a mad killer robot out of like refrigerator parts. It's not great, at least not yet. And in VR, there are several companies and startups that have already begun where they're working on 360 content that operates like a pre-roll on YouTube or in between game levels, or as passive 360 video standalone clips, but they're very short on experience. And they may have value. Perhaps. We'll let the market decide. But for me, that approach feels a bit like this. At the Mill, we take a lot of phone calls every single week. And what we do is we evaluate the desires of our client against the medium that we're working in. And sometimes we make recommendations. Sometimes we say, you know what, this isn't actually really appropriate. I think you should do something else. A good example of that is I had a certain snack food company ask me to write and direct a 30-second 360 video from the point of view of their food, which was sitting on a table during a football game. And I asked them, 30 seconds? Why 30 seconds? This isn't broadcast. Why video from a table? Why must this be VR? Where does it go? And most importantly, why do people care? And I believe that elements like this they can do a disservice to the audience and of course to the medium. The question we always ask is, why make traditional ads when VR is not a traditional platform? There's growing pains, and when you post-rationalize traditional media concepts into a new platform, you're gonna say, well, we've been doing this for 80 years. Let's just keep doing it on this other thing that's not anything like the thing that we've been using. And it's hard to get out of that. But it's almost like conceptual skeuomorphism. It's like, well, this thing worked over here, the wood paneling on my VCR looked really cool, so I should put it on my video player on my app. So we'll be clear, I'm not talking about advertising, using traditional advertising for a non-traditional platform. This talk is not about showing ads inside of other people's content or between it. By the way, this presentation is brought to you by Giphy. We actually have an opportunity right now. The people that think and make VR, funded by brands, to do more and rethink the way that we engage our audience. So let's start with why we have to. Well, the contract with the viewer has changed, like radically. It's not passive viewing, it's not zillions of TV sets in every home. So let's get really real and break down what is going on with the contract. I don't hear enough laughter. This is funny, no? Yeah, all right, come on. Everybody lighten up, I know it's early, Jesus. All right, so first and foremost, VR headsets are not TVs, obviously. They are not part of an existing ecosystem that has spent the last 80 plus years getting to where it is. They are not in every household. There is not the existing pervasive and rich publishing platform yet. So access to the content is restricted. So the contract with the viewer is, it's hard to get. Well, that's a big problem right off the bat. VR systems, they can be a pain in the ass to set up. Even the simplest have usability issues for the general population. Setting up and getting my mom or my dad or even my sister into a VR experience is like setting up email for my grandmother in 1996. Oh, everybody here knows what that feels like, right? They're like, so the internet is a series of tubes. I'm like, fuck. So until we get past that, it's complicated. And again, we're talking about the general population. Everybody in here, sometimes we operate in a little bubble and like, oh, it's super easy and, I'm gonna use this platform, there's like 300 people that know how that works. The rest of the world does not. Next, VR is expensive. It just is, particularly for sophisticated engagement. To see it, to make it, it's expensive. Obviously, those prices are going down. They're going down rapidly, thank God. But 99.9% of people do not have access to it because it is complicated, it's expensive, and it's not pervasive. And in general, people feel dorky wearing a headset. That's just the truth. There's no getting around it, folks. By the way, I aspire to be this dude. He has got some jauntiness to him that I really, really like. But we have accessibility, we have cost, we have democratic usage, we have complication, we have, oh my God, I don't want to be a dork. That's a lot of barriers in the contract with the viewer. But those that do get through those hurdles and move forward, that desire something, it's got to be, once you get through all those hurdles, whatever it is, it's got to be something fucking fantastic. And the promise and the expectation, partly driven by a lot of the hype around VR, is that the end result has to be super, 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 super rad. And I know that we're all trying to figure out what the content is and how it works, but we do have to hold ourselves to a much higher level than perhaps when working in traditional media, because everything that we make has the possibility of alienating an audience. And alienating an audience when your audience is this big right now is very dangerous to a platform and a format moving forward. Lastly, we're post-novelty. Well, we're edging on that. Just making something in VR for VR's sake is going to quickly wear thin. It's fatigued. We're teetering on the edge of larger adoption, and as we do so, we have to remember that just because it's VR doesn't make it effective. And we still work with our clients in that way to help understand that. If the idea is not bespoke and appropriate to the platform, don't make it. Just because it's VR, that doesn't make it cool. And because we're on the edge of the democratization, particularly with platforms like Daydream, PlayStation VR, which is going to put VR in zillions of homes, guaranteed, it's got to start to be really great. And we need to hook in those new adopters rather than burn them. So, on the positive side of things, there are positive things to that contract. When VR is good, it's good for brands and it's good for the audience. It makes an incredibly powerful impression. As any of us know that have had a great VR experience, it's like, damn, that is awesome. Why can't everything be like that? It touches you in a profound way. And it also offers us an opportunity to set a gold standard for the future. And that's because we can induce wonder, which is beyond, it's something that's beyond what we can typically do with passive linear media. When we focus on value, of transport, of rarity of experience, we have a much deeper sense of wonder, of play, and of discovery. We get to get lost in the story, which is a boon to any filmmaker or any client or any brand, honestly. As a filmmaker, and I've worked as a traditional filmmaker for many, many years, check out all the gray, the single purpose you have as a filmmaker, we can talk about story, we can talk about visual fidelity and cinematography, but the whole point as a filmmaker is to elicit a profound emotional response in our audience. And if we're given a medium that actually creates a megaphone for that emotion, well, by golly, we're going to want to use it. And getting that response from our audience is so important. We do that by understanding the truest value. The essential truth of all cinema is transport. We all seek to walk through the tattered halls of some Gothic castle or stride across an alien beach, and we typically have done that for the last 80 years in the company of characters on a screen. Now it's even more of an essential truth and more profound in virtual reality. And so if we're thinking about transportive moments for our clients, funded by our brands, we want to go somewhere fantastic. And it better be freaking awesome. I want to do something amazing. I want to see something fantastical. I want to see something richer than reality. And if we don't accomplish that, then we're not doing our job. The second part that's awesome about the contract is viewer agency. So as these experiences get more and more sophisticated and we move away from fixed cameras and rendered 360-degree video executions, we introduce the ability for people to affect change on the story, the scene, the environment, and themselves. That is awesome, because that is the true spirit of virtual reality. When we give up control and we allow people to participate in our stories, it's not our story anymore, it's their story. And that's where you come away from being an advertiser that's telling somebody a story and instead allowing them to build their own or find their own way. And that ownership, that personal ownership over something makes something so much more profound to them. And as somebody that's working for a brand, that's important. So, what we give up in control, we gain in powerful effects. We get to create really, really powerful feelings in our audience. And I want to talk about one of those effects. This is purely theoretical. I make shit up all the time. It's my job. I'm a director. I want to start with one of the effects that at least I've noticed or I've documented or anecdotally I've gleaned from other people in my own experiences in VR. So, for example, good, compelling virtual reality taps into something more primal within us. If we really think about it, there is a delay, a gap between the heart and the mind, what the mind knows and what the heart feels. You know you have effectively a TV screen strapped to your face and you're sitting on a couch or standing in your living room, but yet there's a part of you that believes you are somewhere else. How is that even possible? How does your rational mind and your irrational self actually sort of work together like that? And I believe that's because we're sort of tapping into something more primal. We're tapping into our fight or flight experience. And a lot of really good VR works because the reptile brain is sort of rearing up on its hind legs. A really simple way to illustrate that, and I'm sure a lot of you in this room have experienced this, standing at great heights. If you've done Everest VR or stood on the edge of a tower or walked across a tightrope, you're fighting a physical sensation because, again, you know you're standing on solid ground, and you've got, a headset on. But when you're standing there and you try to put your foot out over the edge, it always takes a little bit extra effort. And particularly for people that have just started, some people can't do it at all. I mean, even people that have been in VR a lot, they're sort of like, you're not going to plummet to your death. You're looking at a screen. But the fact of the matter, the fact that that actually happens, it happens almost universally, is fascinating. And I think that it results in a different way that we recall experiences, because, and this is a term I coined for an article I wrote, that I believe that virtual reality experiences, when done really well and achieve presence and all that rich, great neurological, physiological, boing, it writes our memories in a way that I don't feel like I watched something, I feel like I did something. Blade Runner is my favorite movie of all time. When I recall it, I recall watching it. I recall Deckard, and I recall all that great stuff. But if I recall a really profoundly strong VR experience, I recall it more like I did it. It comes from a weird, fuzzier part of the brain. But this is a powerful effect. Again, for any creator, this is more personal. It's the recollection of something is kind of central to a lot of advertising. You do something, and then you say something, you share something, and you want people to go do something afterwards. If they recall it in a really amazing, rich way, well, then you've done a pretty good job, I think. So, enough of all this horsing around. I'm doing pretty good on time. I'm actually talking a little bit too fast. I'm just going to stand here for a second. Sip some water. I've been getting so excited, everybody. Okay, what the hell are we making? VR is a gift. To induce wonder and get to transport, it must feel like a gift. Now, traditional advertising by nature is interruptive. And it can be, because the contract with the viewer is different. But as I've just illustrated, the contract with the viewer in VR is significantly different. We are making experiences that don't thrust the message. They can't, in fact. If you have a message in this gift, it must be like a note found in the wrapping paper at the bottom of the box, on accident. Sometimes it's not found. Because the idea, and I think some of us have experienced this, too much pushing, too much telling, not enough finding, not enough seeking, not enough nuance elicits suspicion and alienation. And in fact, it pushes us out of the experience. I don't want people telling me what to think. I don't want to feel like I'm being sold to. I am somewhere else. I'm more sensitive in VR. You can't turn things off or not pay attention to them. And that's a very important thing that we need to be sensitive to. Too much pushing disturbs play, alienates, and removes the wonder. And if you're doing that, then people come out of that experience feeling worse about you, which is bad. I have this, I've been talking about this for like 15 years, and it's particularly important now. This is an example of what I call the Little Orphan Annie effect. And anybody that's seen Christmas Story might remember, but our wee lad here has spent months. He's collecting information and cues from the Little Orphan Annie radio show and writing them down and spending weeks to find out what the secret message is.
I'm in the only room in the house where a boy of 9 could sit in privacy.
Andy, you've got to go. Will you please come out? I'll be right out. Sign out loud.
It was almost clear. Yes, yes, yes.
Be sure to drink your Ovaltine. Ovaltine? A crummy commercial?
Oh, a crummy commercial. Yeah, that sucks. So, because of the contract with the viewer, the hurdles, again, access, cost, complexity, we can never do anything like that, because you're asking our viewers and our audience to do so much more to even get in touch with the thing that you've made. The last thing you need to do is tell them to drink more Ovaltine. Oh, please don't make that stuff. So we only disappoint our early adopters. We burn people who could become evangelists for a nascent medium and a platform. We establish bad habits and bad rules for what could be the future of something that's completely different. Okay, so the first thing I think we could do is look for the answers. And I believe this is one of the first approaches. Brands can be the patrons of dreams. This is This is my own language. I use, in my own virtual reality work, and in fact, most of my live action work, I use dream language a lot. And that's why I've been so attached to virtual reality, because dream language seems built, or VR is built for dream language? Yeah, other way around. But these are experiences that are funded by a brand, that are desired, that are sought out. There's no product, there's no selly voiceover. There's a halo effect driven by inspiring the feeling that connects to your brand story, and you do it by giving and not telling. So, a very early piece that I directed, I know I say early in virtual reality, it was like, oh, it was a year and a half ago, it's like dinosaur age. I was approached by Gatorade, and Gatorade wanted me, again, to write and direct a, I don't know, for lack of a better term, a VR ad. And I think the original concept was you sit in the front seat of the Washington National Stadium and watch Bryce Harper just beat the shit out of a pitcher, knock a ball away. And there's gonna be some sort of voiceover message about how rad Gatorade is. Well, that's a good TV ad. I can see that, could be inspirational, feels really great. I responded by saying, no, I don't think we should do that, because one, in reality, I could actually sit in the front seat at the Washington Nationals game. Two, I don't want to hear a voiceover. I don't want anybody telling me to drink Gatorade while I'm in this experience. Three, wouldn't it be so much more rad if I was Bryce Harper? And again, this doesn't seem that novel now, but it was then. So we created an experience that creates a third to first person transition that allows you to sort of possess Bryce Harper in a way and get this rare experience that 0.0002% of humans ever get to experience, which is standing at home plate during a major league game with major league pitches coming at you, hearing the roar of the crowd, understanding how major league athletes read pitches and what that stress, feel, and sound is like. And if you're a baseball fan, I mean, all we've ever wanted to be was stand in the shoes of our heroes. I mean, they're the closest thing to superheroes we have in the modern day and age, or professional athletes, for good or for bad. So anyway, let me just play this tiny little clip, which is, unwrapped that long, sorry. So you can see what it kind of felt like.
Stay there, stay there, stay there.
It's a bomb.
They're gonna work today, pal.
And you can hear him talking to himself, which is nice.
Excellent. Come on. Get out. Get out of here. Come on. Get out of here.
And that ball is out of here. That's Bryce Harper, the game-winning home run.
Okay, so anyway, the thing is, there's much more to that. It's like a 3.5-minute piece, and you get to start out by seeing Bryce Harper, hearing his internal monologue, how he hypes himself up. It's very private, it's very intimate, and then you get to occupy him in sort of like a Being John Malkovich kind of way. And then we're doing this weird thing of mixing video game language and live action language, where you occupy this stylized superhero version of Bryce Harper, and have this crazy supervision where you can actually slow down time, which is largely said by Major League Baseball players how they feel when they look at pitches. All right, next. And so that was a dream. That's a sponsored dream. Lots of kids really like that. This is another example. This is not a real branded experience, but God, I thought it would have been a really great one. Say you're an outdoor outfitter brand. This footage is from Everest VR, an experience by Solfar and RVX. If you haven't tried it, I really suggest it. It's absolutely fantastic. But say I'm an outdoor outfitter, and what I think would be really great is I want people to go to the summit of K2 and stand there and drink in the vastness of Mother Nature and feel like what a tiny speck you are, and the wind is howling around you, and it brings you to understand the sensitivity of how do you protect your fragile self. There's no VR, there's no VO, there's no cell, there's nothing. But this idea to be able to roam and meditate and feel this extremely rare experience connects you to the brand story and the brand's value. It's so simple. I would totally do that. And I would be like, wow, thank you, quote unquote, outdoor brand, whatever you are. You might even sell some stuff. Okay, next. Utility equals value. This is awesome. I love Giphy, seriously. Makes my life so much easier. I don't have to work as hard to make compelling visuals. I used to make these by scratch. Now I just go online and be like, funny utility GIF. So this is not unusual and shouldn't be unusual to anybody in this room. This is another basic premise, much like branded content, which is effectively sponsored dreams. The utility. So people have been making branded apps for mobile for years to varying success. But the point is that, and that's a whole nother talk about why those work and they don't work. But of course, if you're a brand, bringing something of value and insight along with entertainment to your audience is going to make them seek it out and participate in it. A really simple, low-hanging fruit. L'Oreal made an app called Makeup Genius. It allowed women to use their mobile phone cameras and a very light AR app to try on different looks and styles. Something that eliminated, I mean, if you think about it, it eliminates the fear of experimentation, the fear of buying all this stuff, the fear of looking stupid, the fear of not knowing what you're doing, and allowed them to try it in privacy with zero ramifications and just play. And through that sense of play, L'Oreal undoubtedly sold a lot more makeup. Now, of course, this is a thinly veiled curtain in front of a retail opportunity. So it's not quite as effective as I would want to do for virtual reality, but it had utility, and it did something, and it connected people to the brand and gave them something they really needed and wanted. So, now, what does this start to look like in VR beyond makeup applications? Or, you know, automotive brands are very, very big fans of VR. They love doing virtual test drives. That's kind of a utility in which you can give people a sense of your product without having to go to a dealership. So we're going to do something completely different, but I'm going to show you something that we've built. It's an experiment that's sort of a hybridization of both these things, of a dream and a utility. And this is going to take a second because we've got to swap out our audio. So everybody, close your eyes, meditate, think of happy thoughts, whatever you got to do. Tweet your friend. We got part of it. So I'll start up. The reason why we're doing a split screen is because I want to show this thing running live while I'm talking about it. What we're going to be talking about is something called Strata. Strata is this second half of the presentation. It's kind of a hybrid between dream and utility. It is not a brand experience yet. We actually built this for ourselves, but in doing so, we're not only trying to prototype the future of film and understand what is possible in virtual reality, we're also trying to prove to our clients what kind of things do people want, or where are there openings in these categories for us to start to develop not ads, but products. Not ads, but dreams. Not ads, but utilities. So to start, again, hashtag. Okay. So we're going to start with my personal fascinations that led to this product, and then I'll show you how it works. So first and foremost, I want to be able to control films with my mind. I want virtual worlds to bend to my emotions. I want my games to make me a better person, actually affect my well-being. And this is a personal fascination of mine, and it's in almost all of my work. I love making the invisible visible. There's something about the audio stopping. There's something about revealing what people can't see that it returns them to a childlike state, induces wonder. So with my team, we've created this thing, this experiment to meet those desires. In a moment, we'll be running it live while Mike is setting it up. But first, a little context, because context, if you have this rationale and you have these insights, when you're working with brands and you're talking about making something, you have to have all these check boxes taken care of. So why is Strata important? Why is it relevant to this discussion? Why is Steve Martin's face melting? So we made it because, well, we're fascinated with our data. Our body's output is analyzed every single day by all manner of fashionable wearables. As if we were machines, we digest them as charts and graphs and meters, and we giddily drink them in like we're computing the fuel efficiency or oil pressure of our cherished coupe. And we do this because we're fascinated by the invisible machinations of our bodies. We also do it because we all seek to be better versions of ourselves. We're in a constant state of self-improvement. We want to succeed in life and work. We want to hurdle the obstacles of biology and self. But what we struggle to understand is probably the most and maybe the most important of our functions, which is our focus. Whether you're a painter, a tennis star, a neurosurgeon, we strive to achieve two states of mind to operate at our highest levels, at our pinnacle. And we would call them flow and mindfulness. Again, bear with me. You guys might already know this stuff, but for those that don't. Flow states. Flow states are that feeling of losing time when you're focusing on one single task. It's not work, it's jazz. You're like the lead soloist, and you're improvising, and the music is just flowing out of you, and you're not thinking about where your fingers are. You're not thinking about musical theory. It just happens. Most creative people love this. This is where you get all your writing done. This is where you get all your design done. And when you look up, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, wow. But it felt great. You did a lot, and it wasn't an effort. It just kind of like came out of you. And then, of course, there's mindfulness, which places you in the present. It makes you responsive to every tiny shift. It makes you very self-aware of what is happening with you. And you are also able to typically turn off that nagging peanut gallery that haunts you when you're trying to make creative decisions. As a creative director, there's always this sort of like phantasmic gallery of like, don't do that, that's gonna suck, people are gonna hate you, you're a fraud, I hate you. You can kind of turn those things off and really focus on the core of how you feel about something and make a really good decision. It's a heightened calm and awareness. Now, does the current quantified self movement actually, and all our fancy biometric watches, does it help us understand or achieve any of this? I know how many steps I've taken. I know how many calories I've burned. I know what my heart rate's doing, separate, connected, maybe. I know how much I slept last night. So I believe what we have to do is actually lose sight of the constructs that are telling us what our body is doing, these charts, these meters, these graphs, and start to intuitively understand them in a calm, immersive, and holistic fashion that is both meditative and functional. To achieve awareness and be able to control our mental state requires that we connect to our body's data in a way that is felt rather than computed. And this hinges on awareness. To achieve full awareness, we have to listen, and what we previously considered uncontrollable aspects of our biology. These are the parts that control our common focus. And this is all based on decades of research around information-coded biofeedback, which have proven that when you become aware through audio or visual input of these invisible machinations, you become more aware. And when you become more aware, you start to understand how they affect your moods and your feelings and your physiology. And if we start to become more aware of these things, can we start to learn how to control them a little bit, to achieve mindfulness or flow on demand? And also, the Connect was revolutionary. It changed the way that we interface with digital media. I'm really interested in seeing if there's a new set of controls to be found in our autonomic nervous system, in our emotions. What happens when they're alone? What happens when they're paired with an existing controller? What happens when our films and games react to our feelings? So with Strata, we try to basically reimagine how we consume our biometrics to lend meaning and create this new kind of immersive experience. So with that, we're going to start Mike in Strata so you guys can actually see it. Go, Mike. And again, so the music we're listening to is actually generated by his biometrics as well.
Welcome to Strata.
I'll let this
Strata
explain.
is a journey controlled by your biodata. Your heart rate, breathing, stress level, and thoughts determine what you see and hear around you. Strata will help you learn about yourself. Pay attention. You will see how your data affects change, and in turn, you will be able to affect change on yourself. As you grow calmer, you will begin to levitate. Let's begin.
All right, so Mike is on his way. So Strata is a prototype. It's not a finished product. Again, the music you're hearing now is generated by Strata. You'll be able to hear and see everything that Mike is seeing. So we're going to play this in the background while I explain a little bit about it. So Strata is probably the world's first responsive VR interverse. It listens live to your biometrics and changes the world around you as well as the music. Your biometric data is both controller and author. In this way, it gives body and voice to these invisible machinations. It tells us the story of our bodies in this sort of meditative, calming, surrealistic dream language world. The hopes of this, of course, is that the awareness of this story and repeated use will allow you to create a deeper connection to yourself. to understand it and potentially even control it. Strata is built out of 5 worlds. This is actually a diagram I think I made on day 1. I wanted to make a surreal layer cake. And the only controller, again, is your autonomic nervous system. As you begin to calm and focus, you begin to levitate. As you levitate, you go up from one world to the next world, to the next world, to the next world. But you have to continually be calm and focus on yourself to progress upwards. At the very beginning, when the voiceover is happening, it's basically level setting. It's taking all your current biodata, finding out where you are now, and then everything relative to that allows you to levitate. So different people, some people are really stressed out and they're like, I'm never gonna get anywhere. It's like, well, if you at least just progress somehow and become more calm, you'll actually be able to move upwards. So we hacked this thing together with a lot of existing consumer hardware, and we made some of our own sensors. Part of this is the Muse headset. It's the EEG that gives us variables for calm and focus. We're also measuring galvanic skin response, which is basically what lie detectors are made out of. But they read micro shifts in your skin's moisture. And what it does is it tells us how stressed out you are. And these are very tiny increments that can happen in a heartbeat. In fact, if I went over to Mike and snapped in his ear, his GSR would spike almost immediately. But your anxiety is deeply embodied, and this is how we sort of measure that. We're using a pulse oximeter. We're using it right now to just read your heart rate. But in this, we're focused on pulse, but we're obviously a lower resting heart rate will kind of tell us a story as opposed to a high heart rate. Breathing, which is probably the most important sensor. It's a custom breathing sensor we built. It's a conductive elastic polymer with a sensor in it that can measure when your diaphragm is expanding and contracting. Breathing being probably the most important variable because you can control it, and when you control your breathing, you control everything else. Runs into an Arduino, which does our analog to digital conversion. Usually it's all hidden within a very ugly pillow, which we're replacing with a glove next week, and hopefully getting rid of the glove even in 2 weeks. And this is kind of what it looked like when we started. I mean, again, prototypes are ugly, whether they're hardware or software. So we just kind of like hack things together and test it. Does this feel good? Does this not feel good? Does this work on her? Does it work on him? And just trying to figure out how we could rapidly iterate to figure out if this thing would even work or not. Of course, the idea is to use all these sort of hacked together sensors and start thinking about what this means for present and near future wearables. The application if finished could work on something as simple as this. The sensors and the biometrics and the sort of lag on this existing device do not serve our purposes. We need something much more sophisticated with higher fidelity. But that doesn't mean that something's not around the corner in the next 6 months. In fact, what we're working on right now is we're working with some scientists right now on a single sensor application, which hopefully, watch this space, you'll see in the next month or so. But we're going to reduce all of this clunkiness to one tiny sensor that we can infer all of our data from. And then, of course, hopefully move this to a mobile VR experience, which is much more democratic, can be used anywhere. You do not need to be, tethered to your sophisticated VR system. You could be, anywhere. But right now, it's working for the Oculus. So I'm going to talk about the worlds a little bit. Mike is in world 3 right now, so we're going to catch up with him. And we're going to talk about how these sort of work in tandem with his biometrics. I really wanted this to begin in a dark place that is enclosed. And as you move up, the spaces get bigger and bigger and airier and less detailed. So the subterranean lake is where everybody starts, and your breathing affects the ripples in the water. Your heartbeat is seen in the pulsing of the lights. Your galvanic skin response actually changes the color palette of the system, and of course with the EEG controls your levitation control. Now what's interesting, and people ask us about this, meditation is obviously usually done with your eyes closed to connect to the body, but for beginners what's been found is that when people close their eyes and try to meditate, they fall asleep. So because of this biofeedback, we can connect people, particularly beginners, into an interesting way of seeing and understanding their breathing to become aware and to pay attention to it. The next world is the meadow. What's interesting about this is the meadow is typically where people start to fail. especially on their first try, because you go from an enclosed space and all of a sudden the horizon opens up and we see their data go phew, and they start sinking or they stop moving up. And that's usually because of the novelty factor. There's awe there. It's not a repeat experience. So you see it for the first time, you're like, whoa, levitating rocks and flowers. And I mean, the flowers ripple when you're breathing. There's pulsing again, alien fruit on the trees, levitation control, the gaze when you look around sort of separates and opens levitating rocks. And as lovely as the story is, what we've really learned is that when people go through it on repeat experiences, they don't get that anymore. They start to actually really pay attention to what the biofeedback is telling them, what their body's story is. Mike is just about leaving the floats. Again, the breathing is controlling the sort of expansion and contraction of these floating desert islands and the water ripples. The pulsing of the blooms are connected to his heart rate, and the color of the blooms will change based on his stress levels. You can also hear the music begin to change because the music's not only connected to his biodata, but where he is in the world. It's an interesting insight about this is that anxiety is deeply embodied. For example, if you're in panic, you can think to yourself, calm down, calm down. But to be most effective to calm yourself down, you have to slow your breathing. This actually allows your body to return to a normal state. And this is something that people can learn by going through this, is that your brain is not in charge, your body is in charge. And then the next world, which Mike is just getting into, is called the Aurora. And we have these sort of ice crystal sculptures. The breathing controls the color of the aurora. The heartbeat is the pulsing. The GSR is the color palette of the sort of vertical moving crystals and lights. And of course, EEG is still our levitation control. And then you're going to get to our last, simplest, but arguably, from people's experiences, most beautiful world, which is the nebula. And the nebula is the goal. It's sort of like we've gamified meditation in a way. You want to work your way all the way up to the top and stay there as long as possible. The moment you start to slip out of it, you'll stall and or slowly start to drift back down. But in Nebula, basically, we've turned almost everything off. We're just listening to the EEG at this point because we want to attain calm and stay here as long as possible. So this experience, obviously, like all good VR experiences, highly requires profoundly sophisticated audio. In fact, in many cases, as VR developers, we know that the audio is more important than the visual. It allows us to be transportive. And so we're using the audio here as also another biofeedback device. The music is synced to your heart rate, its tone shifts with your stress levels, and the composition changes based on your position. It was actually created by regular collaborators of mine, talented folks at Fall on Your Sword. And the way this works, again, it's a prototype, but maybe we'll build it into game engine eventually. We're taking the biodata, signal processing it, and actually sending it to Ableton. And Ableton is running a whole bunch of soft synths that can change based on the data. Now, possible applications for things like this. I was approached a year and a half ago to start developing ideas for distraction therapy for pediatric chemotherapy patients. And it's an ongoing project, but it was part of the inspiration behind spawning something that allows people to go to a calming place somewhere else. I'm really interested in distraction therapy. There's recent studies from the University of Washington that show that it may be more effective in pain management in some cases than opiates. There's something interesting about helping people with PTSD, anger counseling, and again, just pain management. So again, this is a prototype, but hopefully we will continue to iterate on this and create products that really help people. Of course, it's also a meditation tool. You can really get lost in this process. People that really enjoy meditation have seemed to really enjoy this experience. It seems counterintuitive to gamify meditation, but it's kind of working, strangely enough. And then of course there's athletics. A huge part of athletics is not only your physical prowess, but your mental prowess. And the idea of mental fitness is so important, trying to help athletes achieve flow states before they go onto the pitch is something that's very interesting to us. So again, if you have a branded experience and you create something with said athletic brand on it, but what you're doing is helping people achieve a higher state of mental fitness, I think you've done something really successful. I'm going to start wrapping it up. So VR is a gift. It should be. If you're a brand, you should treat it as a gift, particularly now. It's very important for us to set a tone, set a standard, set a model. and embrace the new people that are walking into VR instead of repel them because they're getting the same old, same old. We have to be enormously thoughtful. Talking about it right now is really relevant because the platforms and channels are not really populated relatively with that much content. The standard has not been set. There is no gold standard. And so we do have a relative content vacuum. The room is kind of empty. I mean, there's lots of stuff, especially for you and I, the people that work in VR all the time. There's like, oh, there's all this stuff. Think about it when your mom puts on a headset. What's she gonna see? And it's not like it's television, and it's not like it's film. It's small, it's tiny, it's an upstart. So this is the time to sort of define those rules. And if brands get involved, and I think they should, they can be part of reimagining what is possible and create a thoughtful and giving and valuable model for advertising going forward. Before we even consider a brand experience, I always ask my question this: does it tingle? And I know that's sort of funny, but again, people that have experienced a lot of VR, have been working in media for a long time, you have a gut reaction. Does it tingle? Does it make me feel good? Does it open, do little sparkles happen, and I think of all these little ideas or how much fun it's gonna be to be in that experience? Does it inspire play, and does it induce wonder? Virtual reality, I feel like it returns us to a childlike state, and a big part of being in a childlike state is being playful and being infected with wonder. Does it transport? And again, I talked about this earlier. Transport is so important. Virtual reality is not a mimicry of reality. It is something else where physics don't apply, where you can do whatever you want, and the fantastical and the amazing and the rare are the most important things that we can give to people at this early stage in virtual reality. Does it have value? Do people give a shit? Are they gonna go find it? Are they gonna seek it out? Because if you think that you're just gonna push things on people in virtual reality, I think you're wrong. Maybe that'll work out later, but it's not gonna work out now. You have to work with the contract with the viewer and make something that they really, really desire. And does it anticipate the strengths and the challenges of the medium? This has to do with all those other contracts, the complexity of it, the physiological nature. Of course, the same, don't want to make people sick, obvious. But the best VR is written by people that are deeply in tune and connected to the technology, the sort of spiritual quality of virtual reality, and the storytelling quality. People, you can see a lot of stuff that's made by quote unquote tourists in VR, and it's great to experiment, but you have to know all the things to actually make good VR. So moving forward, to find the path, to light the way, we have to be fearless in dreaming new things and to find new ways to connect us to ourselves and each other. You can check out other experiments at the Mill. Just go to the lab section under what we do. You can follow the Mill and myself on Instagram, where we typically leak and sneak new pieces of work. We work in quote unquote stealth a lot, but we do share tiny tidbits of things we're experimenting with. And thank you.